It is Issues at Hand this Monday morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Bruno Edgard, and welcome to Issues at Hand on Church of Uganda Family TV. Yes, it's a wonderful Monday morning now. The clock is ticking, and here on Family TV, of course, we are all about family. So we want to remind you that you have at least a week for many to spend more time with your children before they return to school next week. So please use the number on your screen, call the number, give yourself a wonderful experience at Protea Hotel Entebbe with your family. Please make that reservation and booking today. You will give wonderful testimonies. Treat your children to a wonderful treat at Protea Hotel Entebbe because they've worked so hard and they're going back to work even harder come the start of the second term. So you do not want to miss out on this opportunity. Talking about families, on the 15th of May, we have the International Families Day, and the celebration and commemoration was all about families. But when it comes to something that is affecting many families here in Uganda, it is food insecurity. We have had so many scenarios, especially in places like Karamoja, where people are starving. Hunger is serious. People are resorting to eating weeds, and even the weeds are running out. And that's how serious the situation is. And of course, it has a greater effect on families. But even more so when it comes to a UN report that was released, it came out to state that in Uganda, over 10 million people in Uganda suffer with food insecurity, with starvation, with hunger, and with the food prices skyrocketing in Uganda. What does that mean? That is a very dire situation for many Ugandans here. So this is a discussion we're having today, and to join me to have this discussion is Miss Agnes Kirabo, making a return here on Issues at Hand. She is the Executive Director of Food Rights Alliance. Welcome back to Issues at Hand.
Thank you so much, Edgar, and good morning, viewers. We bless the Lord that has given us a gift of a new day, that has given us life, that has given us the opportunity to come here at Church of Uganda Family TV this morning. I salute you surely.
Amen. We salute you as well. Now, yes. 10 million people suffering with lack of food here in this country. How did we get to such a dire situation?
Actually, the UN report is saying in the year 2022, last year to be specific, 10 million people suffered not only food insecurity, severe food insecurity. You know, hunger is classified. Hunger is classified.
What are the classifications?
There is a tool that the UN and other agencies have started using. It's called the Integrated Phased Classification of Hunger. My hunger may not be your hunger, may not be the viewer's hunger. And one state of hunger leads to another state of hunger. So we have those that are food insecure. Okay, they are just food insecure. But then those graduate into severe food insecure. And then the severe graduate into acute. The issue of 10 million people, I actually believe that was an underestimate, because in the year 2017, government of Uganda with the UN agencies actually indicated to us that those that were sleeping hungry were 10.4 million. And nothing has significantly changed, because we were also told that COVID-19 added another 2.3 million. So I actually believe those that are suffering food insecurity severely, even as we talk now, are more than 15 million in this country. It is quite unfortunate that this is official statistics, and we have lived with it, and we don't do anything about it. We talk about it, but we don't do anything about it. And in any case, when we go to do something about it, we stand up to do something about it as a country, we are doing a piecemeal, reactive. We are just, like we are spitting on fire. The house is on fire, and all what is left with you to fight back is that drop of survivor. That is where the biggest problem is. Truth be said, there are so many families, right as we speak now, that never had a meal last night. I know I was treated to a story where a woman would pretend that she's cooking when she's actually not cooking, but waiting for the kids to drop off and sleep, and then she also disappears. So they sleep in a disguise of thinking that they are going to be woken up to have a meal, and only not to have a meal. That is where we are. The hungry in this country are not only in Karamoja. They are in that neighborhood. The poor are hungry and severely hungry, but also the rich have another form of hunger. So the report is right, only that it gave us an underestimate.
So someone may be asking themselves, Uganda is an agriculturally rich country.
Yes.
How is it that we can have such a big problem of 10 million people going hungry? It makes no sense.
And actually that is where the problem is. That even our leaders that are supposed to make decisions, develop or design programs, establish systems, collect data, they also still think traditionally that we are an endowed country, and the moment the rains come down, then definitely people are going to have food. It's a mindset of some kind. I'm here to inform the Church of Uganda Family TV viewers that food is not that item you see on the plate or something that remained in your saucepan. Food has gone miles away from that. Yes, it is that, but it has since moved away from that. Food is an economic weapon. Food is a political weapon. Food is a governance issue. So you can no longer rely on the rains come down and you assume and you make an assumption that food is being produced. I can just give you an example. We have just concluded the first season of this year. And do you know that so many farmers have not been able to plant as they would have loved to plant? People have not planted.
And why is that?
Because the seed prices skyrocketed. And yet government had created dependence for some good years of farmers, a batch of farmers at least accessing the minimum seed amount from Operation Wealth Creation. Then that was topped by NGOs. That dependence was created, and we kept telling government, you're creating a dependence. And when they were pulling it away, they just pulled it away dramatically. So they left the farmers to the greed and vagaries of the people dealing in seed. And this very season, I'm here to competently tell you that the kilogram of bean seed went up to around 30,000. So that means if a farmer wanted to plant an acre of beans, needed 30 kilograms. How many farming households in Uganda, who we know that our agriculture is dominated by smallholder farmers, has 900,000 in the house? Even if it was you, maybe, but I don't think I can readily plant more than an acre. And that is seed alone. Maize seed went to around 12,000, 12 to 18,000. How many smallholder farmers in this economy, I hear people talking about the economy, in this economy readily had that money to go and plant? You get? And you ask yourselves, what happened to our national seed company as a country? Because this government and national institutions, their role is to stabilize the system. That is their role. So if me and you can afford a seed and the seed prices are skyrocketing, government releases seeds that are not necessarily subsidized, but to stabilize the market, and then many of us are able to access the seed and plant. So the rains went, our leaders thought farmers are planting. They didn't plant as much as they would have loved to plant. So being an agricultural country is a great opportunity. It is a competitive advantage, but it is not a competitive advantage. We have to make it competitive. It should stop happening just for the sake. We have to make it competitive by doing proper planning, by having the right data, by getting organized. And less of that, I'm telling you, this country is seated on a ticking bomb. You can't have a hungry population. You can't preside over a hungry population. You know that common proverb, a hungry person is always an angry one. So being an agricultural country is good. It gives us comparative advantage, but we need to do certain things right as a country to make our agriculture competitive. No. And then we are sure that the actors within the agriculture sector are actually going to give us the gross product that we have estimated and projected to have.
Indeed. Now, you've mentioned something there in terms of the skyrocketing of prices. Now, we already have the challenge of the fact that the food, there's food insecurity in the country, and now add to that the challenge of the fact that food prices are skyrocketing. A kilogram of beans is now at 6,000, and so when you see something like that, aren't we doomed in terms of food security, insecurity further in this country? Because why do we have the prices go so high, and yet we still have problems with 10 million families plus, like you had said, failing to put food on the table?
That means more households are joining the other, more numbers are joining the other 10. Because let me tell you, I grew up in a traditional community, and it was an abomination to be seen carrying buunga, maize flour. Even if you really wanted to taste a posho, and your mother would send you to a shop to go and buy maize flour, he would give you, a black pepper or something to disguise. You're not supposed to be seen, because they are going to talk about you the whole village. But these days now indicate that being able to buy maize flour, it is actually prestigious in the community. You can even take a selfie. You have to make sure that everybody in the community knows that you and your household can afford maize flour. So you hear about the story of not the stories. These are common words. Kameza. Today, how many people who are watching Family TV were left with 10,000 on Kameza? How many of those households? Especially in the urban, but also in the rural. We used to go and visit the rural areas. We would carry sugar and we would carry bread and maybe soap. But now we carry a bunch of matoke. I visited one of my parents in Chiuni there in Mobende. And we had to look for matoke to carry to the village.
It is supposed to be the other way around.
Which is supposed to be the other way around. And you recall during the COVID, even government, because it is not on top of things when it comes to food security, household and national food security, they made a decision to give people food. They erred on 3 fronts. Number one, they didn't know that we don't have the food as a country. There are no beans in the country. Number two, they didn't know who they are going to give food where they are. Number three, they thought that those that needed food, that are living on hand to mouth, are only in the urban areas. They didn't know that the rural areas are dependent on me and you who are working in Kampala to send some food home. So government planned without these facts. And you recall what happened. Before we knew, the whole country needed food relief. You get. So the rise in food prices are very, very unfortunate that they are happening, and I'm assuring you Ugandans, on the look of things, unless if our government organizes itself better like other governments, we are even going to get more hungry, because I have told you the planting was not substantially done as it was expected. The food prices have already gone up. The schools are going to open, and then they are going to consume a considerable amount of food from the market. So many other million households and individuals are joining the national statistics of the hungry. It is quite very unfortunate. So when we are talking about food, we are not only talking about the production, but we are also talking about managing the stability of the market, especially to make sure that the poor can feed themselves. which is not happening.
That's indeed a fact. And when it comes to food, let's go back a bit. So, I've heard so much about Food Rights Alliance, and I've even seen you on TV many times talking about the
And
right
I'm
to
here
food.
again.
Yes, talking about the right to food.
Yes.
Which is something that's not enshrined in our constitution
It
yet.
is.
Well, it's in the national guidelines, but there are many proponents as yourself that are saying that we need actual laws to spell out the right to food
Sure.
here in Uganda.
Sure.
So, can you help us, for those of us who might think this is a small issue, what does the right to food entail, and what does it mean in terms of ensuring that there's adequate food in the country?
Let me also start by saying, you who is viewing Church of Uganda Family TV this morning, it is your human right to have access and you consume safe, healthy, and nutritious diets. It is your human right as a human being. And I'm even here to tell you, it is not only a human right, it is a fundamental human right. So when we are talking about human rights, please, if you never had a meal yesterday and it wasn't by your choice, but it is because the circumstances around you did not create an enabling environment for you to feed yourself adequately, your human right was violated or it was abused. Either of the two. So many people do not know. When we talk about the human right to adequate food, many people think we are saying food has a human right. No, we are saying human beings have a right, and a fundamental human right, to have access and to consume healthy, safe, and nutritious foods by all. This is a human right that has no derogation. There are no limits. We cannot tell you because you're in prison that you shouldn't have an adequate meal. No, we cannot. So long as you're a human being and you're living, this is a human right that must be respected, that must be protected, that must be promoted, that must be fulfilled by our government. I need to tell you this. This government, when it has just come in power in 1987, they came in power in 1986. In 87, the first instrument this government penned the signatures on, an international instrument, was the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, where the human right to adequate food is enshrined. So our government has a duty, and they are not going to run away from that duty, to fulfill like they did. You know, I was a bit young when they were developing the food and nutrition policy in 2003. Why we have not lived without a law? Because the proponents of government that were coming into these spaces were misunderstanding the human right to adequate food, saying, now you want to make a law that government gives the people food. And that is why we have, since 2009, the draft bill has remained a draft, because people in government thought that by government feeding its people, we are asking for too much. We are very happy with COVID that without being pushed so hard, they have realized that there comes a time when government actually has to give people food. So that one is not debatable anymore. Again, government protecting our human right to adequate food. This business of thinking that they are going to make our food system homogeneous from Moroto to Katuna or to Yumbe and wherever, it is wrong. The people of Karamoja eat as the people of Karamoja. The people of Toro eat like people of Toro, and so the Baganda and all these ethnic groups. That is what defines us. That's our heritage, you get. So the issue of respecting, people need to be respected. People need to be respected, and their food systems need to be respected, but also being promoted. We need to be, they should not castigate. I hear people castigating people's way of eating. Please, People need to be respected. Their foods need to be promoted. They need to be protected. And therefore, I'm among those that strongly believe that one, you're hungry, I'm hungry, you're obese, you're overweight, simply because we do not have the governance systems, which involves the policy, which is 2 decades old, the law, the absence of a law that defines the do's and the don'ts, but also the institutions that are supposed to plan on how much. Do you know that this country now, not even the president, through his institutions, knows how much food we need to keep this Uganda stable for the next financial year? But Kenya knows, Rwanda knows. That is why the Kenyan government has never and will never sell off their strategic food reserves. Because they know the amount of ugari they need in a financial year, and they have projections, and they can tell that actually we have a shortfall of so much, and we have seen adverts, government indicating that we are going to import so much grain, and this is the grain we want. I want somebody to come and challenge me on how much food do we need in the next financial year. You saw the budget being passed last week by Parliament. There is no commitment or statement that given these amounts of money, so we shall need so much food, bare minimum, to kickstart this population. So my dear, the issue of the law, this business of having legal instruments on all things that do, some of them actually, they will end tomorrow. For instance, we have a law on oil. That oil one day is going to run out of those wells. And you do not have an instrument, you do not have an institution that is helping you define the minimum of your population, what your people are going to eat and how they are going to eat. The sovereignty of any government, the sovereignty of any society is the sovereignty of any man in a household, in the head of a household, is your ability to be in control of what your people are going to eat, the people under your jurisdiction.
Actually, that leads me now to my next question, which is duties and responsibilities.
Yes.
Now, you gave a very good example of how if there's a person who did not eat last night or has not eaten today, that person's right to adequate food and access to food is abused.
Yes.
But the question therein is abused by who? Because someone else was saying, well, if you're not working, if you're not putting in an effort, then how are you going to eat? And someone else will be saying, oh, it's the government that's not doing enough to ensure that we have access to food in this country. Where does the duty and the responsibility lie, and where does it crisscross?
In human rights language, when we talk about abuse, that is when the cause of your human right to be violated, the cause of you not enjoying your human right is caused by any other person other than government. When we are talking about violation, is when the circumstances that are causing your failure to enjoy or realize your human right is caused by government. That's why I used the 2 words, that your right was either violated or it was abused. People fear the school and the subject of human right. Do you know why? Because people do not want to take responsibility and people do not want to accept duty. I'm here to tell you this. Your human right to adequate food is not the right to you being fed. Because when you're fed, that one alone abuses your human right to live as a human with dignity. You recall when for us we are still collecting water from the springs, we would cause reasons to fight at the spring well. And one of the key slogans would say, you Edgar, what are you calling yourself? Do you feed me? You recall, Gondi, sir, you know? So it is inhuman to be fed. And actually that is why we urge our governments to create an enabling environment. I have told you that the farmers, many of them actually desired to produce as much food as possible. But the government slept on duty. by one, selling the national seed company and not putting in place a system that enables these farmers to have access to seed, and even their seed systems were collapsed. So in that case, government remains with duty square. It is also not true, by the way, it is also not right to victimize a victim. There is nobody, I'm telling you, you see our young children. We have all of these stories that there are so many pathetic things happen to them in Saudi Arabia. You've seen them.
Yes.
Go to the airport and you see how many of them are flocking to go to the same place. But when you ask them, don't you see all these stories? They'll give you one answer. Tunonya chakulya. So it is also not true to victimize the hungry. Ugandans are very hardworking people. I'm a social worker. I have worked with people across. But the moment the conditions make you hopeless, when you lose hope, everything is not working out. I'm telling you.
So
then somebody comes and says Edgard doesn't want to work. It's not true. So we should stop victimizing the victims. They are already victims. Let us create an enabling environment. You saw what Bingo Mavarika did in Malawi. And I know the forces that want to grab our food system, they do not want that. They do not want us to be sovereign. They do not want our governments, they don't want the people to be in control of their own life, because he who feeds you rules you. You get? So my dear, when we are talking about duty and responsibility, the duty is government creates an enabling environment to make sure that you feed yourself. But when that environment is created, please make use of it. Of course, we know in the days of Operation Wealth Creation, there were households that were being given, for instance, cassava cuttings, potato vines, and all that, and they don't plant them. They don't plant them. So there, you negated your responsibility. But the person with duty was supposed to come with a whip and whip you. Because when you fail and fall into the traps of hunger, the duty goes back to the state.
And when it comes to the state duty in finding a solution to this problem
Yes.
of a lack of access to food and adequate food at that, something that has been passed by cabinet, as we were told last week, was the fact that there's going to be an authority, a different authority, that will be handling matters of food, whether that's food quality, but also food consumption and adequacy here in this country. And this purview has been under the National Drug Authority and other agencies, but now it's going to be separate. Do you think that that's a viable solution when it comes to our food problem in Uganda?
The issue is we have been agitating and requesting government, one, to prioritize the issue of food and put it on the forefront, and provide leadership, and be in control and be held accountable. There were efforts a couple of years ago to amend the Drug Act and then bring in the food, okay? And those processes, I think, we don't know who captured them. You know, our policy processes more often in Africa are captured. So for us, okay, let me speak on my own behalf. As civil society, we are still studying and trying to understand the government decision, because in many cases, when your father behaves in a certain way, if you're intelligent enough, you have to investigate what has caused him behave in a certain way, such that you avoid that. Otherwise, you're going to come back to the same trouble with your father. So we are still wanting to understand this decision. But on the face value, we are happy. We are happy that for the first time in the history of this country, government is taking responsibility. That one, they need an institution. Even when cabinet had resolved not to create any new institutions, but otherwise going to merge institutions, and they are coming to say, I think much as we resolved on that, this institution on food is very, very important. Now, we as Ugandans, We need to closely, fast and steadily walk in, because it is not about the name, but the detail that is going to define the mandate of that institution, and the detail that is going to define the scope of what the institution can do. Because what we have been suffering as Uganda is our government behaves in a manner that their spirit is willing, but their body is weak. You go to a national development plan, in the high level outcomes, there is food security. You get where they are supposed to invest, they have not put any strategy. For me, that is an indication that the spirit is willing, but the body becomes weak. So this institution has the word food in it. I don't want it to fall into the same trap of the spirit willing, but the body is weak. And when eventually the institution is set up, its objects are defined, its mandate is defined, when they have so less to do with food. For us, what we want is an institution that is giving jurisdiction and responsibility. Responsibility of who do we hold by the neck when the people of Karamoja starve? Of who do we hold by the neck when government wants to give out beans and there are no food beans in the country and they end up giving out stones? Okay? That's what we are looking for. But we are also keenly watching to say, how and why did the government rush to say, let us establish an authority, as opposed to the processes of enacting the food and nutrition law? Where are the two going to converge? Will this authority be the one in charge of that instrument or something? And
isn't the instrument supposed to give the authority its power?
You know, there are instruments that are developed by Parliament to establish an institution. To say this institution was established by an act of Parliament. Okay? But there are also, we have seen instruments, legal instruments, laws, and of that case, that are put in place even when there is already an existing institution. You get, and you have a particular law. So it is possible that we can have both, especially now that food was made as a cocktail of so many things in this authority. So we are still studying, we are ready, we are organizing ourselves to work well with government in the cooking, not in the crossing of T's and dotting I's of this institution.
But you believe that this institution is a step in the right direction?
It is a step in the right direction. Because we have been having a problem. Every time we get stories that people in Karamoja are dropping dead due to starvation, then a ad hoc team is constituted. And that ad hoc team runs to Parliament and gets a supplementary budget. So before the budget is approved and it starts raining. And then everybody goes home. Because here rains mean, I don't know who told people here that rain rains food. It has happened. So this time around we are expecting that we are going to see government defining the amount of food that we are going to eat, the quality of food, to do the enforcement, and all of the leadership that we expect for every person in this country to eat safe, healthy, and nutritious foods. If you ate less of those three, you did something else, you didn't eat food. Because once food is not safe, it is not food. So if you ate, like we saw stories, that our children are actually consuming aflatoxin-rich portion in school, that is not food, that is the poison. So now we are looking forward to the governor who is going to even manage these schools. I know UNBS is trying, but UNBS is far stretched from Nigina to electric wires, to shoes, to shirts, to diapers, to even now go into aflatoxins. I think they need to set a principle, and then there is a governor that runs with that principle and make sure that you and me eat safe, healthy, and nutritious foods. Lest that, we must drag somebody to court.
Yes, and it's important because food is the basic of human instincts.
Yes.
Very, very, very pivotal, and it means a lot for us as human beings. And so we hope that this authority will go a long way into ensuring that there's accessible food and adequate food that's safe for consumption here in Uganda. Now, we're going to continue with this discussion, and we have the Parliamentary Nutritional Week coming up this week. Is this something that is being spoken about greatly when it comes to this Nutrition Week? Might we have our parliamentarians do something about this issue of the right to food, or will it be another week that just goes by and we don't see anything tangible coming from there? And we shall talk about this after this quick breather. You are still watching Issues at Hand here on Church of Uganda Family TV, and we are talking about the right to food, that's adequate food and access to food as well, and we're talking about food insecurity here in Uganda now. Talking about food, there's very delicious food at Protea Hotel in Tewe, so for those of you who can afford, please make a reservation and booking today to ensure you enjoy that time with your family. But the reason we're having this discussion today is because there are so many people in urban areas, in rural areas here in Uganda who cannot afford to have adequate food, who are sleeping hungry, who are starving, and that's a very big problem here in Uganda, and so we are trying to tackle it. Now, joining me once again, for those of you who might have just joined us to discuss this issue, is Miss Agnes Kirabo, who is the Executive Director of Food Rights Alliance. Now, this week we are having the Parliamentary Nutrition Week, and it's an event that will see all things concerning nutrition being discussed about in Parliament. And of course, Ms. Agnes Kirabo is going to tell us what we can look forward to when it comes to this week. And you informed me during the break that you will actually be speaking during this event. So what is the Parliamentary Nutrition Week all about, and do we expect the discussion of the right to food, especially when it comes to access and adequacy, be at the forefront of this event?
Thank you so much, and we are also very happy that we have taken these discussions into the corridors of Parliament, and a whole alliance was formed, the Uganda Parliamentary Alliance on Nutrition, Eastern Alliance. These are members of Parliament, so many of them that really believe, like I believe, that the issues of no one should sleep hungry and no child should not live to its full potential. So this is another week that is happening. I think as we are here, they are already walking in a procession. You know, when members of Parliament decide to put down their gasoline vehicles and say, let us walk in protest, to say something must be done, I think that is one of the things they have played. Just like we are here, Church of Uganda Family TV has already played its role, and this is the contribution that we are having these conversations here. You must also take action. We are expecting that a special presentation is going to be done to the plenary of Parliament on Thursday, and the rest of us who are not members of Parliament, we are going to flock the parliamentary gallery. Let us also go to the gallery. Maybe one day we shall walk from the gallery to the chambers and to see how members of Parliament are actually handling the issue, the discussion about food. The major focus of this week is, of course, the instrument, getting the legal instrument on food, the food and nutrition law in this country, but as well, reviewing the food and nutrition policy of 2003 that is far old. So on this side, I don't know whether this is the east of the city, the discussion is going to be in Parliament around food. But on this side of the city, on my left, which is Bukoto side, there is also going to be an agricultural extension week. So every actor is standing in his own right to see that the people of Uganda eat and eat adequately. There is, when we talk about food, there is something that people forget. People think that food is only farmed, which is true. Food is only farmed. But not all of us can eat the food that we have farmed, and it is sufficient and adequate to meet our nutrition needs. The issue of incomes become very, very important. The issues of poverty become very important parts of this equation. The issues of employment, when we are talking about the number of our young people that are not employed, they put a burden to the food system. But then secondly, we are losing a generation. Let me tell you, a child is supposed to be fed a minimum of 5 times a day. 5 times. But during COVID, we learned of people in this country who are feeding their children on the same meals, which was 1 meal a day. A child, and also me and you, by the way, we are supposed to have at least a minimum of 5 food groups. That you had the vegetables, you had the fruits, you had the pulses such as beans, you had the grains such as rice, you had the carbohydrates such as cassava, at least 5. You have some meats, you have milk, you have an egg. I'm telling you, there are people in this country who were born and they have grown up, they have established families, they have never ate an egg alone. 1 egg, and you say, I ate an egg. There are households in this country. And this is very costly. I think let me take this opportunity when I'm talking about incomes and food diversity and the meal frequencies you're supposed to give your child, to talk to the young people that have established families. They have that right. And we are very happy that you're really taking God's work ahead of creation. But you young women, because you're home now, your men have gone to hustle, and bring a kameza around midday. Please discuss with your husband to go back to his family land, and you grow food and feed your children. Let your husband be in Kampala like he came for Chieyo. Because if your children are not eating adequately, you're going to be perpetually in poverty. Perpetually in poverty. Children that have not been fed properly do not live to their full potential. They will never study well. They will always be sick. So you're between the market and the hospital. Go back to your village. You young men, take your women back to the village, mukole cheyo, and then you return. They will come back when things have become better. Because many people are not employed, they are in disguised employment. The incomes are not adequate to give their families the 5 food groups in a day. Your child desire to eat an egg. When you go in the village, you will rear that chicken. It will wander around the compound. It will lay eggs, and you give your children eggs. You will grow some vegetables. The minimum of your dignity is what you ate last night and what you're going to eat today. Less that, you're not a human being of full dignity. And you must be worried just as I'm worried. So let all of us stand in collective action, but also in individual responsibility. Sitting and you're waiting for Kameza to buy lipstick and what? My dear, when your children are getting malnourished, you better go back to the village.
Indeed, it's important that we think about the family, and especially how our children and our family have, whether they have food indeed. Now, there's something you've mentioned which has touched me, which is, well, you might say that you have food, but how safe is that food that you're eating? And does it have the nutritional qualities that our bodies need? And this reminds me about some of the stories that have been going across the country about how some of the food that you're eating, vegetables and even fruits, are not safe for consumption. On that end, now, what should be done to ensure that we have safe food for consumption? Now, I say that at the same time, whilst remembering that this food authority that's going to be put in place will be also looking at whether the food is safe for consumption. But in the meantime, what should be done? Because like you said, we have the likes of UNBS who do that work, but they are a bit stretched. Is there something we as family members can do, or is it something that's only in the purview of government to ensure that the food that's being produced is safe for consumption?
Let's take responsibility. You see, government has just talked about establishing an authority. They haven't even started. But in the meantime, you're eating unsafe food, you're giving to the population unsafe food. It is very unethical. I'm telling you people, and I think I'm seated in the right place. We are going to be brought to account. If the world is not going to testify of your wrongdoing, of manipulating the food before you're giving it, heavens do not sleep. You will be brought to book to account for your actions. So I think for me that is the basic. We all know that when the animal is sick and it is under treatment, you have injected it with antibiotics, you have injected it with hormones, that milk is not safe, it is not good for even your children. But because you're sending it to the market, you don't care. I'm here to tell you, you will care. Because you don't know that it is your relative buying from the market. When you're using the chemicals wrongly, can you imagine you go to the market here and the tomatoes are white? They have spread them with macozeb, a hazardous chemical. So before even we wait for government, because it is slowly going to come, by the time it eventually comes, many people are going to be dead. And I'm telling you, the dead will also be in your own house. The dead that are going to suffer of the chemicals, of the manipulations you're doing, of the mismanagement, are equally going to be in your house. So in our own right, as we are waiting for government, let us take responsibility. The market leaders, why are you allowing vegetables with physical traces of chemicals to get into the market? Surely, is that too much to do? Is that too much to do? Why are you taking the rotten posho or maize grains to make posho for children in schools? So you farmer who mismanaged the maize grain, thinking that you're doing it for the market, that maize grain is going to the school where your children are. I'm here to tell you that the statistics of children that are suffering cancer are going up. The cancer statistics, before we know, the whole of Mulago is going to be reduced to a cancer institute. And I'm very sure no family can come up and say they haven't lost somebody due to cancer. And the biggest percentages of the deaths are attributed to food-related or food-caused cancers. So as we are waiting for government, food safety is everybody's responsibility. Please don't do anything because you're doing it for the market. Your relatives, your mother, your children are the consumers in that market. Before you know the money you thought you were making, you're going to spend it, but you're also going to reduce on your assets to take care of a cancer patient. So, if we have not seen you, I'm here to tell you the heavens are watching you and your record is proper. We may not take you to court of the world, but the courts of heavens, the Creator, who put us on earth to do work on heavenly behalf, and we are mismanaging ourselves, is watching. But besides that, the bulk of the food in our system is unsafe for consumption. Why? Because, let me tell you this, our problem is not to find safe food for the hungry. That is not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is to satisfy the greed of those that are providing leadership in the food system, that are playing a role in the food system. Your greed. That when maize is rejected in Kenya, that it is not fit for human consumption, it ends up in Chisenyi and goes to our schools. And in the names of Tetufirwa. Tofirwa, you're going to be among those that have completely lost.
And so we have to take a personal responsibility to ensure that the food we have in this country is safe for consumption. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but thank you so much for discussing those issues. I know we have learned so much, and that we are going to do our part as we pray that the likes of government and other stakeholders, with your help, with the likes of Food Rights Alliance going forward to champion the rights of food here in Uganda, we shall see a better picture in terms of Ugandans enjoying the right to access food, to access adequate food, and to consume food that is safe for consumption. Thank you for joining us on Issues at Hand this Monday. We return tomorrow. For now, it is ciao. God richly bless you, and enjoy the rest of the programming here on Church of Uganda Family TV.